What does it take to run a world-class movie studio? Few people know, but this man has mastered it. I'm Jessamine Moyer with Georgia Entertainment, and today I am so excited to be joined here at Funwoody by Justin Campbell, Vice President of Studio Operations at Assembly Studios.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You are literally one of the busiest men in these parts. It takes a lot to run a movie studio. How did you get to the role you are at now?
It's been an incredibly interesting journey. You know, I grew up in Snellville, Georgia, which is 20 minutes from Assembly, east of Assembly. Drove by that site, hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, and now to be a part of what it's become is a really cool kind of full circle moment. But I went to University of Georgia, wanted to be in film. I didn't know where that was going to take me at that point. It was likely to be Los Angeles or likely to be New York, and I kind of delayed that decision a little bit until I had to make it. Fortunately for me, I graduated in 2010, and the incentive had passed in 2008. So there actually was something there for me, and so
to clarify, that's the film tax incentive.
Film tax incentive credit, yes.
Here
exactly.
in Georgia, okay.
Yeah. And so at that point, 2010, I graduated. I think there were maybe 6 shows. And I was fortunate enough to know someone that knew someone that got me on as an office PA.
Which is really the only way you get a job in
Yes.
the industry.
Yes.
It's impossible to get a job unless you've had a job, and the only way to get that
Yep.
is to know somebody.
Yep, exactly
and that's
right.
why this industry is incredibly loyal.
Yes, absolutely. And through the 10 years past that, working in physical production, I don't know that I had more than one formal interview that you may find in any other industry. It was like, you know this guy? He's good? Great. Okay, you're hired. When can you start? That was basically the interview process for film. And
So did you start as a PA?
I started as an office PA. The first day I was making grocery runs, picking up dogs from doggy daycare, using my college degree to its maximum.
I once had to take my boss's dog out for lunch in Los Angeles.
Yeah. It's but that's what it takes to be at that level. It's a can-do attitude. There's nothing outside of your scope that you won't do. But I'm fortunate enough to have come up through that production office because it's really the lens and the kind of, we call it, mission control and the fire department all blended into one, because all of the communication that comes in and then out to the crew comes through that office. So you really get the best perspective on how the entire machine works. You may not know everything about a specific department, but you understand the hierarchy and how things work and why things are scheduled the way they are. So it was a really holistic way, and I'm grateful for it, that I wasn't just standing on set with an umbrella and a lockup 200 yards away from the camera, which I've done that too, just to understand it. But it really gave me a well-rounded view, budgetarily, creatively, how these departments work together to create content. And so, growing up in kind of this first generation of credit, incentive, whatever you want to call it, workers, I was able to work, my first show, I had a 6-foot folding table and I was in a warehouse, nothing to the scope and scale that what you would see at Assembly now. But, to Georgia, state of Georgia's credit, that's how we really started to blossom, was retrofitting all these spaces. And so even before I had operations in my title, I began to understand out of necessity what it took for a facility to maintain and allow a show to prosper. And so was one of the first folks into Eagle Rock Stone Mountain, where they still had a distribution machine in the warehouse. So we took that down, put a wall up, added insulation, added power, added HVAC, all of those things that a stage requires. So it really allowed me to see the entire picture, which puts me in a good position now to be able to really be, you try to be the quarterback, get everyone on the same page, have the conversation, keep the machine going, and stay behind the scenes, right? So that's really my niche and where I like to be. And first show I was ever on, as a PA, my producer came to me at the end of it, and he said, what George is doing is cute. He called it cute, which was offensive to me, but as a lifelong Georgian, he said, what Georgia is doing is cute. If you want to make it in this industry, if you have an interest in this industry, you've got to come to Los Angeles or you can come to New York. And that really, I didn't like that approach. I thought,
It's very offensive.
Yeah, well, and and not only as like a Southerner thing, it's just like, why would you subscribe to the idea that the best ideas and the best people are zip code specific, right? Like Georgians have great stories. Georgia has great labor. I was working closely with a lot of them. I was like, why couldn't we make this work here? And fast forward to now, here we are.
We've clearly proven it. I
yeah.
love that you identified as one of these first generation incentive, because you truly have seen it and worked it and lived it holistically, right? And it isn't zip code specific, but there is a unique secret sauce, if you will,
there is,
to the industry here in Georgia. How would you describe that?
It's the people. Yeah, I mean, that's the constant that you get from producers, from folks that choose to live here. Those of us that were fortunate enough to grow up here know it's just a great place to live. It's a great place to do business. It's a great place to raise a family. And people coming in, you know, that secret sauce you talk about, it's easy to recognize. There's just a feeling, you know, on film sets in Georgia that are different than anywhere else.
But to your point, though, you know, that producers said, well, that's cute.
Yeah.
Still, a lot of other markets, primarily Los Angeles, New York, London, aren't recognizing what Georgia has to offer. I don't know if it's a matter of, you know, feeling threatened or ego or competition, but why do you think that is? And what does Georgia need to do to solve that?
I think that's a good question. I think you look at it too, we're still relatively new. I feel like I've been doing this a long time, but if you look at the world, I mean, we've gone from in 2008, 45,000 square feet of purpose-built space to now, 3 million? I don't remember what the number is, but we'll be number 2 in the country by the end of next year. And so we've done that in 15, 16 years, where these other places have been established for 100. So I think there's, you know, we have to look at what's going to make us sustainable, permanently sustainable in this industry. And it's really just getting more people in here to see what we have to offer, because we've done tours at Assembly and people walk through and they're like, I had no idea anything like this existed in the state of Georgia. They paint it as, you know, retrofit warehouses or I don't know how they paint it. But I mean, I think the idea of where we are now, people don't understand the kind of infrastructure we have now in place and the crew. So I think it's just going to take more time, but we'll get there.
Assembly has uniquely positioned itself. Not only the proximity, its location to where it is here, but also the ground in which it was built. You mentioned driving by the site when you were a child. Share with us the history of where Assembly is.
So we're right in the heart of Doraville, on the site of the former General Motors assembly plant, which opened in 1958, shut down in 2008, but was really the heartbeat of that city, and more importantly, drove the economy of that area. They had, you know, 2,500 people working there daily. Throughout the construction process, you know, we ran into folks through our vendors or sub-vendors that had a story or had a connection to the site. So it was a really important piece of land inside a very important region of Atlanta, this northeast side. And so, you know, Hilton Howell, our CEO, the first time he stepped foot on it, he said, this is perfect. And then a week later had his board out there. And so, but a lot of what we've done, even in the name, is kind of a nod to the past, that, you know, Assembly is a place for people to gather and people to create, while also recognizing its important history.
And it was built primarily by Georgia vendors.
To the point, almost exclusively to the point possible. You know, the Gibson Company, who was our development partner, we have local contractors, local subcontractors, all of our vendors. I think we had 180 different vendors that touched, you know, over 80 different districts in the state of Georgia.
Well, you know, that's part of that secret sauce that I was mentioning, the commitment to the local economy, the small business owners, the producers, of course, a place to serve the creatives, but also the laborers, where they got to bring in their craft and build something so special that's going to not just put some of the biggest films and TV shows on screen, right, but really impact the area on a greater level. Few markets are that committed to their location and the people that make it that way. I mean, I can speak from experience in that. After living in LA for 15 years, I never experienced a commitment to the community there. I craved it. We
Yep.
wanted that. But when I came to Georgia, that was one of the first things that I noticed, and it blew my mind. It was that aha. It was a heart in the industry,
Right.
and a commitment
Yeah.
to the community that I have not seen anywhere else in the world.
That was part of the vision for the project. Hilton House specifically said, this is to show the world what Georgia can do. And so part of the project being so public facing by using Georgia vendors was to further build upon that relationship with the film community and the general community. Because as we know within the business, there's a moniker that everything that a film touches is just on the set. We know that it's more of a ripple effect with small businesses and the economy at large. But Hilton's vision was to make this industry visible to others. Everyone knows it's big. They've had a yellow sign in their street. They've had their business shut down by filming, or they saw a celebrity out in Buckhead, right? But no one, when you think of film in Georgia, you don't really think of a place. And so that was his vision, was when you think of film in Georgia, you think of Assembly. And
Well,
so that was part of it.
and when I think of Assembly, I've got to give a shout out to Dunwoody. I think 12 minutes set to bed,
12 minutes
right?
set to bed.
The communities here who are really rallying around this industry are incredible.
Yes. I mean, the receptiveness of groups like Discover Dunwoody to enter an industry that was previously unknown and try to find out more about it and being proactive and saying, okay, well, how can we help them? You know, because they understand the end product is they can be helped by crew members and visitors coming and visiting their restaurants, their hotels, their retail. And so they asked, you know, which is so nice sometimes, just like, what can we do for you? And then, you know, seeing the impact already between Assembly, and we've only developed 40 acres of 130, so there's still more to come here. But certainly recognize a really long-term partnership with the surrounding communities, and Dunwoody being at the forefront of that.
Well, and it's really key for, communities and business owners to understand how to service the needs
Yeah.
of a production, right? Because admittedly, they're niche, and they can
Yes.
mistakenly be considered vain
Yes.
by some people, right? Or
Yeah.
Hollywood, cue
Yeah.
the eye rolls.
Yeah.
But the very nature of production creates an element of immediacy
Yeah.
and nuance that has to be catered to, simply because that is how the business runs.
Yes.
It's a business.
Yes.
Yes, of course, there's, elements of ego or vanity at play, certainly, but in the business of production, you are operating on a very tight time schedule with a very tight budget, with actors and directors and crew members that are only available for a certain allotted amount of days, and then the business is over. Right? So communities have to understand what those needs are and how to service them if they're really going to commit to the success of these
Yep.
productions.
Absolutely. It's a labor of love when you enter into a contract with a production, because they wanted everything yesterday. It's very customer service focused. It's there's no request too small or too large. I mean, you've got to approach it with anything as possible. I can do that kind of attitude, and certainly Dunwoody has done that in a big way.
Well, Assembly has also done that. I
Yeah.
mean, especially, with the added services and infrastructure of NBC Universal.
Yes.
I mean, talk
Huge.
about what resources Assembly has to offer, not just here in Atlanta, but really to the East Coast.
Yeah, it's a one-of-a-kind facility with that partnership with NBCU Production Services that we are so proud of. And I think, for me personally, going back to that story of what Georgia's doing is cute. It's like, what more vindication and validation do you need than Comcast, NBC Universal recognizing this facility, signing a long-term lease, and then bringing their production services arm to service the city, and to your point, the entire East Coast through this facility.
Just seeing that
Yeah.
logo when you drive up
Oh,
and
yeah.
you see it on those grip trucks and you see it on the side of the buildings, that's powerful.
It really is. I mean, it gives you instant street cred, right, and validation. But more than that, the folks that come and work there get that world-class customer service. I mean, you can build the prettiest box in the world, but if someone gets in there and you can't service their needs, you are failing. And so by partnering with someone like NBC and leveraging their century worth of experience doing this, I mean, we really felt like partnering a world-class facility. The most important part was that world-class customer service that they provide. And so that you know, with everything we've done, I think that's probably one of the things we're the most proud of, is bringing them here for a long time. Yeah.
Of course, the audience wants to know what kind of world-class productions are happening at
Yeah.
Assembly. I know one of the hottest shows on television right now was one of the first to roll through
Yeah, absolutely.
Assembly,
Yeah.
Fight Night.
Fight Night. Awesome. What a first show to have at your facility, especially with an Atlanta story. You know, it was a massive, massive undertaking. Huge cast. I think there were something like 70 cast trailers on the site.
And by the way, not
Yeah.
just 70 cast trailers,
Yeah.
but cast trailers for Kevin
Yeah.
Hart,
Yeah.
Don Cheadle,
Big
Samuel L.
names.
Jackson, I mean, the biggest names.
Yeah, we're so proud of that. Had a chance to watch it last week, blown away with it.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. And I think it just shows you what that site's capable of. I mean, the kind of productions we're going to come in, and those kind of productions then, you know, to our point, blend out into the affect the local community, affect the local economy. And so that's the kind of thing we want to see there and see more of. But we're really proud that that's the first thing that's shot there.
I know that there's a lot of NDAs involved,
Yes.
but can you share any productions or any insight about what we might have to look forward to from Assembly?
I think I could probably share what's already been shared by others, so I'm not
Great.
breaking any
We'll
other
take it.
NDA, but we're really excited. There's a soap opera actually called The Gates. That's a CBS Paramount production that has stationed at Assembly. And so it's in partnership with the NAACP, Procter & Gamble. I mean, it's one of those old school multicam shows that I think is probably the only one since, it's like been 30 years since you've had a predominantly African-American cast that's featured. And so, and it'll air on one of Gray Media stations, ANF, the local CBS affiliate. So it's a nice touch to be able to look out in your office window, see them filming, and then look on your TV station that we own. And it's we're really excited to partner with them. We hope they're going to be there a long time. Yeah.
So we know what's next for Assembly.
Yeah.
What's next for Justin Campbell?
Whatever's next for Assembly. You know, obviously we've come a long way in a short amount of time. We built that entire studio structure in 20 months, over 1 million square feet, 43 acres. And so we've been operational now for 8 months. But we've got a lot of exciting things planned for the rest of the sandbox out there that we look forward to sharing in terms of bringing in the community, bringing in that mixed-use development with entertainment as a main focus of that, retail, hotels, all of the above. So that's really our next step. We're deep in the program of it now. It's just going to be a timing issue of when the best time for Gray to kind of start that next process is. But Assembly Studios should show you kind of our style. We don't do anything less than what we feel is the absolute best. So we're going to apply that to the remainder of the site. I think it's going to be a hub for the community as a whole for years and years to come.
And where can the audience continue to stay connected and informed to Assembly?
So our website, assemblyatlanta.com, certainly on all of our social pages, Assembly Atlanta on Instagram. We have pretty much daily posts, and that's where we'll drop any pending, upcoming, latest and greatest news. Yeah.
And of course, more on all of that at georgiaentertainment.com and right here on Funwoody. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter for your chance to win a trip for two to Sundance 2025, where you can join us at the Georgia Entertainment From Script to Screen party. We'll see you next time.